when we started out as a company, we were just doing original music and sound design. And yeah, the business has shifted and changed entirely, which is actually really exciting because whereas we used to just do original music and sound, our approach has been, and I think this is relevant to anybody who's in school right now and in terms of discipline and what they want to do in the future. I met a guy years ago, the former creative director of Hallmark. He and I became really good friends. He became eventually he left the company. They came back and brought him back in and said, we don't want you to leave. And he said, well, I want to invent my own company within the company. And he created the shoebox card line out of this new group that he formed. His title was Creative Paradox. But he wrote a wonderful book called Orbiting the Giant Hairball, which was sort of his catharsis about working in the dysfunctional world of a corporate structure. But the truth is I think that exists in all structures. I think there's no such thing as that being exclusive to big companies. It's in our company. It's in families. It's the I don't know how to describe it exactly except to say that whatever the dominant force is within the culture is the way the culture moves. And he has one chapter in the book, and it's chapter 19, and it's titled Orville Wright, and the chapter's one sentence long. You flip the page over, and it says Orville Wright didn't have a pilot's license, and to me that was a really definitive moment for me in creating and recreating, I should say, our company, reinventing our company. And this was, this is 14 years ago. This is a long time ago. Because I thought, we're just music and sound, but what I didn't realize is that we're just a creative company. We're creative people. We're writers. And writing now can encompass visual arts. Shooting on the camera you're shooting on is now not consumer, but it's at a consumer price. There are times when a camera like what you're shooting on used to cost $300,000. Now you can get it for $3,000. So my belief, though, is that it's still a matter of the tools are now more accessible, but you still have to have great ideas, and that's where we focus our time and energy. We're now kind of Harvest is now I look at us as being a creative shop, a creative people who just happen to own a production company, and that's not to say that you still don't need line producers and directors and creative directors and writers and art directing teams, which is the traditional format of ad agencies. But there are amazing people right now, and that we sort of aspire to be like, that are working in multiple disciplines, producing great work. There's a guy named David Banner, for example, African American guy. He's a hip hop artist, but he went and pitched Motorola on an ad campaign. He wrote the music for it, but then he wrote the spot, and he shot the whole spot on a Motorola phone, which was really cool. And we were at a music conference, and he showed us all this stuff, and it was just like, wow, And they have an ad agency. Motorola has a big ad agency, but this was like a little product niche that he created to target 18 and 24-year-olds, and he's done some amazing things. So, our company now, Harvest, has evolved into doing, the best way I can describe it is to say that we do branded content for all media. So that is really more specific to, certainly radio and television, the traditional forms, but now what's becoming the new traditional form of web-based product. The thing that was showing here in the background, this video that we produced for Neutralite, it was only shot for the web. We wrote it, produced it. It's specific to a product launch to men 18 to 24-year-olds who work out 3 times a week and take sports supplements. So, like the G series for the sports drink Gatorade is a competitive product for that. But we were reflecting on the fact that 5.5 years ago we would have never produced this. because YouTube didn't exist. So now, though, we are involved with probably 3 different projects right now, which will be YouTube-based only, that will be targeting specific demographics, women, and the other 2 are 18 to 24-year-old targets. But we're incorporating the visual arts. We're starting with good writing, then shooting, and then, of course, sound and sound design. So I think what people come to us for are ideas. We do work with, Neutralite, which is owned by Amway, which is a huge corporation. We do work with Meyer. We do a lot of Meyer's broadcast work, all the radio work, and work on some of their TV. And we've created music programs for them that were download-based, targeting specific demographics, where we do music research. We do all the licensing. We do all the deliverables, which is sort of like creating a music culture for them, much like Starbucks, for example. We work with the Detroit News and Free Press. We do work with most of the major ad agencies, Team Detroit, Foot Cone. So our palette of services is broadened out and serves a lot of different markets now. So where we used to just do original music, and we were marketing and pitching ourselves to every ad agency in the country, and trying to pick up a lot of national work. Now we're doing more video production, and we're not going, for example, to Team Detroit to say, use us as your creative team to produce your next national ad campaign for Ford. They have a creative team intact at the company, at Team Detroit, great creative team. They're going to go to LA or New York to pick A-list directors to do those things. We're still, though, going to be interested in doing music for them and sound design. So we're still out pitching that work, and we're getting that work. We just did the new Mike Rowe campaign. We did Simply Orange. We've done, some really good projects, some great projects. We just did an international job for Sheraton Hotels with a director out of New York. And that's just music. But on the editorial side and on the creative side, companies like Detroit Free Press and the Detroit News, also known as the Detroit Media Partnership, had come to us. We've been doing their creative work for 3 years now, targeting their rebranding of the paper after taking their subscriptions and going from 7 days down to 3. Huge deal. Which is the impact, of course, of the internet, and then coming back and doing a campaign that ran for a whole summer with Brian Vander Ark of Verve Pipe. We wrote and produced a piece of music and then created a 90, 60, and 30-second television campaign. It ran in movie theaters, on the web, and on traditional television. And then last year doing what they call a single copy sales driven campaign to try to up their subscriptions back to newspapers for people who might pick them up at convenience stores and what have you. I think people come to us. I mean, the marketing director, vice president of marketing there, said the nicest thing to me one time after we launched the first campaign. And he said, I come to Harvest because of your creative sensibilities and because I feel safe and I trust you. I don't know many clients. I don't know many agencies and many creative people in general who have clients who say those things, but those are very endearing things when you're talking about companies that are generating hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in revenue. And I think that's why people come to us, because we have really great ideas, and they know that when they work with us, we're kind of a boutique. There's only 12 of us, so we can't take on 10 giant jobs at one time. So we prefer to take on a job that we can focus our time and energy on, not incorporating all disciplines, because as I mentioned, we can just do music and we can be really busy with music for a while. Right now, when you came in, we're in pre-production on 3 different television spots. We just finished shooting one on Saturday. We're doing all the sound and music on that spot, as we will on these other spots. But I think it's because people feel that we're going to give them our best, and I think that that's really what's important, regardless of where you go in the world. We have a great creative team here. I mean, we really do. I think what's truly unique about our company is that everybody, even the office manager, will bring in and to have a conversation about a project we're working on that's important to us, and get input. What do you think? How's it hit you? And I think good listening skills are critical to being successful, not just in the ad business, in any business. I mean, I think if you can understand what people need and really listen to them, and then come back with good creative solutions that help them achieve overcoming that issue, whatever it is, you'll have a job for the rest of your life. You'll work forever. But I am also, in an economy like right now, listening is more important than ever, because you're talking to a lot of people who are very nervous. Corporate profits are up, hiring is down. Corporations are holding on to their cash, and they're not willing to spend money on things that don't light them up. They'll spend money, but you better come up with a pretty good idea in order for that to happen. And then on the other hand, you have brands and businesses and companies that have to spend the money and still don't know exactly what they should be doing. But client relations and dealing with clients, to me, is critical. You can tell clients what they want to hear, which people do. You can challenge their thinking. You can come back with a better idea. But however you handle that conversation has to be done with some poise. It has to be done with some diplomacy and respect, probably more than anything. Because, every creative company in the world has account people who come back from meetings and go, well, this is what the client said. And they go, what? They said, what? And, that's why God created account people. They're the go-betweens between the creative side of the business and the business side of the business, so that creative people don't go out and, as you noted, strangle people, because they'd have to have a special prison just for those people. But I can't tell you how important it is to be able to communicate clearly with people. And, we have something within our company, we call it clear and complete communication. And what that means is that if I give somebody instructions on a job to do and they do it wrong, I'm responsible for that. Okay? It's not, unless they're just bad at it anyway, then I made a wrong decision in hiring that person. But assuming that they're really great at what they're doing, which I feel our team is. We got a great team. If I give them something to do and they don't do it properly, I'm responsible for that communication. So what clear and complete communication means is that it's incumbent upon me to explain to them thoroughly and get that they get it before I release them to execute that idea. And the same goes with clients. It's sometimes you go in and you meet with somebody, you get so excited about the fact they want to do it, you forget to ask some really important questions. And then you come back and you produce something, you take it back and they go, what is this? And we go, oh, I guess we didn't ask you the questions that we should have asked. And we're going to have to eat all of that and go back to work. I think that skill is so important and so overlooked in our business, because the tendency is that if you can't do it right, you get rid of them and find somebody else. And at a corporate level, you got people who are really busy and, as I mentioned earlier, are nervous about where things are going, and they want to make sure that the people they're hiring are going to get it done, and they're going to get it done well. So they, if they can rely on you for that, and we tell our clients, you can count on us for this, and if we don't show up for that, we'll fix it. We'll come back and do it again. We'll do it till it's right, because that's our commitment. I think that it's funny because when we've hired some younger people here, when they don't get it right, they get really discouraged. And one of our senior music writer, who's a brilliant writer, Julie Magsig, early on, man, it was like, when I come back and say the client didn't like the music, it was like a 2-day thing. She'd be, take it. Oh, she'd just be crushed, and, it was just devastating. And we just say, look, it's okay. It's not that they don't like you. This just isn't the right idea for them. So let's find out what that is, and we're going to go back at it again. And the fact is that, we have come up with 3 or 4 ideas for a campaign or for a piece of music, for a video concept that have been the best stuff we've ever done, and we have 3 ideas, and the client hasn't liked any of them. And it's, it's easy. Yeah, it's easy to want to pull the trigger on that and go, okay, we're done. But it's also okay. What we do is we sit down and go, what did we miss? We missed something. Did we not ask enough questions, or did they change their mind? Because it's hard to believe, but clients change their minds because they're going through an evolution. Because your creative concept reminded them of what they're really supposed to be doing, and you're kind of getting pulled along in that evolution of thought. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with that process. And sometimes, most of the time, I am. Sometimes I'm not, but that's when I go home and go for a run or a bike ride and try to work it off, and you just come back to it the next day. So I just think it's funny. I have a 10-year-old son, and I was he's on my iPad. He's got an iTouch. He started writing music when he was 4.5. He with GarageBand, and doing overdubs. He's shooting video and he's editing things. He's got a Wii. He's got all this amazing stuff. And I remember going to the media center when I was at Towson State in Baltimore and checking out the first portable 3/4-inch portable 3/4-inch camera that had this long tube. It looked like you were going to the moon. It looked like you were, it was like a life support system you'd have to carry on your back, And I remember checking that thing out and driving around Baltimore and shooting video and thinking, wow, this is so cool. And then, of course, I'd have to wait 5 days to get into an editing suite to edit, and then nobody really knew what to do, and, tape would break, and I was just thinking, how cool would it be to be in college now to have all these things available to you? And I think to some degree, Callan, my son, my 10-year-old doesn't know what he doesn't really even, he knows what CDs are, doesn't know what records are, doesn't know what cassettes are, doesn't know what tape is. There's all these things that he doesn't know. And it's really okay, because it just means that, he's still got to come up with great ideas and experiment. And I think if I were in college and I had the opportunity to play, I would be doing all the things we were referencing earlier. I would come up with ideas for clients that I would pick clients around my market that I'm in and say, I'm going to write something and produce something, and I'm just going to go take it to them and say, hey, I don't know if you're going to like this or not, but here's a spot I produced. What do you think? And you know what? It's possible that it could really suck, okay? But I can guarantee you that when we first started in the business, first 2 or 3 years, everything we did was really lame. I mean, it was bad. People still paid us money, though, which was amazing to me. And thank you to all those people who did that. I really appreciate that. But I would work for free. But if you're going to work for free on things, you got to work on things that you're passionate about. Do things that light you up. You don't want to go produce a spot for a funeral home necessarily. But you could pick a product. If you're in Lansing, Michigan, or you got Grand Rapids, you've got Detroit. Find some businesses. And look at what they do, understand their brand to some degree, and then just come up with an idea and execute it. I'm telling you, that is, I was very involved with the American Advertising Federation for 13, 14 years. I was local club president and chairman of the district for a couple of years. I was on the National Addy Committee, and one of the things that I loved was the National Student Ad Competition. And, going and seeing all these teams from around the country competing for categories that were underwritten by General Motors or by a number of different other large corporations to pay for these kids to come up with ideas and pitch them was pretty extraordinary. But the thing is that it's kind of like what I'm talking about. It's picking something and doing it, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to be an NSAC member to do that. You can do that with anybody. If you got a guy with a camera and you got a woman who plays music and you're a writer, come up with something. Or maybe you do it all, And if you do it all, call me, okay? Bonnie will give you my contact info.